This year, Colorado has something you won't find in most states, a Senate seat Republicans think they can steal. Incumbent Democrat Michael Bennet has been able to stack up cash and run positive ads, but Democrats know they could have a fight on their hands, depending on who GOP voters choose this month. Republicans have 5 choices: Robert Blaha, Ryan Frazier, Darrell Glenn, Jack Graham, and John Kaiser. In our last debate, all 5 said they will support Donald Trump as their party's presidential nominee. Right now, round 2, a last-minute chance for GOP voters to decide who's best to go on to November and try to beat Bennet.
This is Decision 2016 Race for the Senate, brought to you by 9 News in partnership with the Lincoln Club of Colorado. And now, your moderators, Kyle Clark and Brandon Rittiman.
Good evening, I'm Kyle Clark.
And I'm Brandon Rittiman. Thanks so much for joining us for this, our second debate between the candidates running for the Republican nomination to the U.S. Senate.
Our audience here in Denver tonight is comprised of guests of the campaigns, as well as the Lincoln Club of Colorado, our partner in putting on tonight's debate. The Lincoln Club is the oldest political organization, Republican political organization in our state.
The questions and the format were decided by 9 News and 9 News alone. We have not shared any of the questions with these candidates in advance. We have seated candidates on stage alphabetically from left to right by their last names.
And for those of you seated at home watching now on Channel 20 or watching live on 9news.com, you will have the opportunity to participate in live votes throughout the course of the hour. You'll see them scrolling on the bottom of the screen. You can vote at 9news.com/vote now. And later in the hour, you'll have the opportunity to actually pick the topic that we'll go more in depth on and discuss.
We have no opening statements tonight. We will have brief closing statements at the end. Candidates will get 60 seconds to answer most of the questions tonight. They can see a countdown clock at the back of the room, and everyone will be able to see the lights change from blue to red on stage if somebody runs out of time.
Our audience has graciously agreed to hold their applause between answers in order to maximize the amount of time that we have for our conversation with the candidates here tonight in this commercial-free hour. But now let's all please welcome the Republican candidates for U.S. Senate. Gentlemen, let's get started. Colorado Republican Party Chairman Steve House recently said that there is no space for racism in your party. Donald Trump has said that U.S. District Judge Gonzalo Curiel cannot do his job impartially because he is a Mexican. The judge is not a Mexican, he's an American, he's from Indiana. I'm going to ask each of you in turn to answer this same very specific question. It seems like a yes or no to me, and then we can delve into the details and why this matters. Mr. Kaiser, is it racist to suggest that someone cannot do their job well because of their ethnicity?
Well, Kyle, I don't think that actually someone's ethnicity has really any bearing on whether inherently they're going to be biased. But in the American legal system, we have a long tradition of judges recusing themselves if they are biased or if they think that there may be an appearance of bias. So, I think that there's a process for that in our legal system, and it should play out in the courts.
Again, Mr. Kaiser, the question is it racist to say that someone cannot do their job well because of their ethnicity? Mr. Trump was asked, why is it that he's getting these rulings? And his answer was, because of his race.
Yeah, well, he's American, I think is what the judge is American, and that sounds certainly like it's something that's racist to me. Again, inherently, there's nothing that really matters when you're looking at the American legal system. When you enter a courtroom in America, you should know that no matter whether that judge is of Hispanic origin or white or black or anything else, what we've had enough of in this country is division politics. And frankly, somebody who's going to be racially demagoguing and talking more about dividing our country, we've had plenty of that with Barack Obama. As a matter of fact, race relations in this country are worse than I think they've ever been in our country's recent history, and so I can't wait until Barack Obama's out of the White House. We've got a lot of big problems, and we need to work together to solve them.
One final opportunity to say whether or not Mr. Trump's comment is racist. I don't believe that you did.
I said yes.
It is. You do believe this?
I said that inherently. I don't think that there's anything that's inherently biased about someone based on their heritage.
I apologize. I had trouble sussing it out. Thank you. Mr. Graham, same question to you. And again, I want to make sure that I read the question precisely. Is it racist to suggest that someone's ethnicity, that someone cannot do their job well because of their ethnicity?
It absolutely is a racist statement. Donald Trump crossed a line by attacking the judge's ethnicity. And from my perspective, I've said repeatedly that I won't support Hillary Clinton under any conditions, will not vote for her. And equally, I've said Donald Trump has to do different, and he has to do better if he expects to earn my personal support as a presidential candidate.
Has he lost your support?
He has lost my support right now. Based upon what he has said, he has lost my support. I've wanted different, I've wanted better. I was offended by what he said earlier about women, about Mexicans, about Muslims, how he handled the David Duke question. And I expected different and better. And we did see different and we did see better for a period of time. His foreign policy speech, his speech about energy in North Dakota, we saw an evolution taking place. He took a massive step backwards and he's lost my trust. He must own this. And he must apologize for what he has said if he expects to earn my support.
Mr. Graham, thank you for the direct answer. Mr. Glenn, let me ask you again. Is it racist to suggest that someone cannot do their job well because of their ethnicity?
The statement can definitely be interpreted as racist.
How do you interpret it?
I take that statement at face value as a racist statement, but I also learned, having been a person that has to deal with this issue each and every day, that you also have to look at the character of the individual that's making that statement and delve a little bit deeper. But I can clearly see how a person can interpret that at first blush as racist.
Has Mr. Trump lost your support as a result of the racist statement?
Mr. Trump is our presumed nominee, and I will be supporting Mr. Trump as our presumed nominee. The alternative is unacceptable.
Does that go for no matter how many statements he makes that you deem racist?
Well, I certainly will call him out on those statements. I think it's important. But if we're going to actually compare character issues, then why don't we talk about Ms. Clinton's character issues at the same time?
I absolutely believe that we'll talk about that in the general election. Let me ask you this just quickly. Does saying racist things, as you indicated that you believe the statement is, make one a racist?
It's a close call. It's one where when you actually think about the statement and how it's stated, you need to have some sort of self-control to realize, and this is the focus of my campaign, we are very focused on the tone of our campaign. And I don't appreciate that because it makes our jobs more difficult to do.
Mr. Glenn, thank you. Mr. Frazier, the question again, is it racist to suggest that someone cannot do their job because of their ethnicity?
Well, first off, Kyle, thanks to 9 News and for the Lincoln Club for hosting us here today. The statement that was made, let me be very clear. It was ignorant statement. I was greatly disturbed. I've always said I intend to support our Republican nominee for president, but I expect better of our Republican nominee for president. When I heard that statement, I said to myself, that's just not right. It does not reflect the values of our Republican Party. It does not reflect the values of any of us on this stage. And I believe that when people look at this stage, they should see the Republican Party, in fact, does embrace diversity. What Mr. Trump said was wrong. He needs to own it, and he needs to move on for it. The one thing I don't know.
Again, wrong or racist?
I believe the statement itself was racist, as I said before. Okay. But I was saying it was wrong, but what I don't know is I've never met Mr. Trump. I've never talked to him. So I don't know his motives. I don't know his intent of his words. So to say, is he a racist? I don't know. I've never met him. But what he said was absolutely racist.
Let me ask you a quick
and we're better than
question.
That as Republicans.
Senator Lindsey Graham said today that if anyone was looking for an off-ramp, this was it. This was the opportunity for Republicans to say, no more, too far. Mr. Graham has taken the off-ramp.
No, I've not taken the off-ramp.
You said that you no longer support him.
I expect different. I expect better. He still has an opportunity to improve his behavior if he owns this. And
you said he lost your support.
He has lost my support. He can regain my support. He has to do different. He has to do better. He has to own what he has said, and he's got to apologize.
And
for
to
Mr. Graham is parked in the vicinity of the off-ramp.
And to be fair, he did say for now.
Yeah.
He did say for now. Look, I'm not looking for an off-ramp. I'm looking for a Republican nominee for president that I can work with to help move Colorado and our country in a better direction. We have far too many right now who are struggling in our economy, who are looking to fulfill their version of the American dream. That's what I want to do as the United States Senators, to move this country forward. And I believe a corrupt Hillary Clinton is far worse, quite frankly, for our country. And so I expect Mr. Trump to own what he said, to clarify what he said, and to ensure that he shows from this point forward a respect for the diverse culture of America and how he can work with folks like myself to help move our country in a better direction.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Mr. Blaha, is it racist to suggest that someone cannot do their job well because of their ethnicity?
Well, it's nice to be here. I'm at the end of the row here. The answer is yes. It is a racist comment. As somebody that has Hispanic people in our family, I'll tell you that it is very offensive. However, he has not lost my support for this reason. I'm a Republican. I'm running as a Republican. He is the presumed nominee. But when I have a chance to have an eyeball-to-eyeball conversation, I will comment on this with him. There's no question.
Let me ask you this. Senator Mark Kirk from Illinois rescinded his support for Mr. Trump today. And one of the things that he said was that the party needs to send a message to Trump that, quote, racism and bigotry are not going to be tolerated in the party of Lincoln. What is the message that you're sending by saying that it's racist, but saying that you'll still support it?
Well, I think it's like a lot of things. You have to look at the overall record here. Mr. Trump has said some things that have been pretty incendiary. And he's also said some things that are pretty mainstream. So I think we need to realize that we either have a choice, and many of the people have mentioned, we have a choice. And the choice is either we pursue the path of Donald Trump as a presumptive nominee or the Republican administration, or one of us up here takes a position and says we're going to throw the towel in and we're going to go never Trump, or we're going to go with Hillary. And when we talk about Hillary, what I would say to everybody out there, particularly to you two, all I have to say is Benghazi, Rose Law Firm, pork bellies, pick your favorite topic. We have a 35-year history with this woman. 35 years of documented performance. We know exactly what we're going to get from her, and that's why I am a Republican. That's why I'm supporting the Republican nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Blau.
Thank you. I want to thank you guys, by the way, for these waters. I didn't get a chance to work out, so
they're complimentary. You can take that home with you. Yeah.
All right, so we just heard a whole lot of talking.
I would just like to go back on this for a second, because I think all of us have a moral obligation to speak out on this. Donald Trump attacked a person's ethnicity, and as moral leaders of our community, as moral leaders, perhaps as moral leaders or as leaders of our party as well, this is something that I don't think we can let just brush past us. This is not what the Republican Party stands for. We are the party of inclusion. We are the party of diversity. Look at the candidates that we put forward for the presidential campaign. 17 people, the people of color, the women that were running. The same thing for our own race here in the senatorial race. So I don't think we can let this one brush by. I think we have to stand firm and make certain that Donald Trump does in fact own this, understand that it's a completely unacceptable set of behaviors, and that we must have an apology and we need different.
But you're not ready to say that somebody who makes racist statements will not get your support. I understand that you want to condemn the statement, but would it not also say something if you were in the camp of a Mark Kirk or a Jeff Flake or a Lindsey Graham who says, I understand why we want to win, but I can't support someone who says racist things.
Time out, Kyle. I think if you think about it, the election's in November. Just like voters are making up their mind about Trump and I guess Hillary Clinton, you have to remember they have time. He said something that was really stupid and quite frankly offended me as a man, as a father, as a black Republican. But I want to give this gentleman an opportunity to show us over time whether in fact he's ready to lead our country. Because I want a Republican nominee I can work with. Because I believe if we have a Republican president, a Republican Senate, and a Republican House, we can actually move America forward. And that's what's important. We're talking about our country, our children and our grandchildren's future. This is our time to take a stand, and we have that opportunity. And so to say that we should outright not support Trump now, look, I'm not saying that I'm going to continue to support him if he makes these types of statements. What I am saying is give us an opportunity to have that conversation with him, to talk about the direction of our country, and to be able to move forward, because I believe that's what's important. Let this play out.
Actually, I think Brandon's going to try to put a bow on this, and if you want to use time to return to this later in the debate, we can, because I think we've had a thoughtful, passionate conversation about it. So if you choose to talk about it later, we certainly can.
And we have had a lot of words about this. I really just want to make it clear to the people at home where people stand as of this moment and give them a snapshot. So by show of hands, who here, if Donald Trump is the nominee, will support him at this point, knowing everything you know, will support him all the way through November?
Without an apology and without owning this, I will not.
Okay.
I need more
information as well.
I think hands down from Frazier and Graham, and we heard both of you explain a little bit about that.
And I appreciate that. But you know what? Growing up, having to deal with these types of issues, there are people that say things that are downright offensive. But you got to keep your focus on the main objective. And that's the one thing that my parents drilled into my head, that things are going to be tough. People are going to say tough things. But ladies and gentlemen, the future of this country is at risk. And you have a clear choice. You can pick the Republican nominee, or you can pick Hillary Clinton. And it's clear that is the wrong choice to pick Hillary Clinton.
All right, let me jump into our next question here, and it's a policy question related to Donald Trump. Trump has not backed away from his call for some sort of ban on Muslims entering this country. If a President Trump were to send Congress any sort of ban that targets people solely based on their religion, would you support it? Why or why not? Mr. Blau, we'll start with you.
Well, you know, I've talked about this a lot, and I don't think it's a religious issue. I think what it is a safety issue, and here's why it's a safety issue. You know, we are very clear that we cannot and have not been able to vet people coming into this country. And what's happened on the left, and frankly you guys, a lot of people have turned this issue solely into an issue of religion. It's not an issue of religion.
Well, he's the one who's speaking about Muslims, sir. You could propose a counter-proposal saying certain countries, but that's a different thing.
If you let me finish, it's an issue, though, of safety and security. So let's look at it this way. We have a door in our house. The reason we have a door in our house is to protect ourselves from who's coming in and coming out. Until we can vet people, until we can understand where they're coming from, and if they are from terrorist states that we're able to verify that they're not here for nefarious reasons, we cannot afford to have people just coming into our country without securing our borders. It's really that simple.
Brandon, I'll jump in here.
I'm going to go left to right here. Mr. Frazier?
I couldn't disagree. You know, I represented the city of Aurora for 8 years. I'm very proud of having represented that entire city, one of the most diverse communities in our entire state. I don't believe we need a ban on Muslims. What we need to do, and I speak from a position, I think, of credibility, having served 5 years in our United States Navy, having worked in the intelligence community, having supported combat operations in the Middle East, North Africa, as well as initiatives in Asia, we need to ensure we have the right apparatus in place to monitor the behaviors that are of concern so that we can understand what's happening in our own country and we can prevent the type of attacks like we saw in San Bernardino. That does not require a ban. That's not the American way. That's not the Republican way. We welcome all people in our country, but we also have to take very seriously the threat that we face from the likes of ISIS and the fact that we know they are seeking to get into our country each and every day, which I should remind everyone, this is why immigration reform and border security is so key to our national security. As a candidate for United States Senate, border security will be a top priority.
Mr. Glenn, a ban comes to Congress that's targeting people based on religion.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is remind Congress, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going, it's a separate but equal branch of government. Mr. Trump can propose what he wants, but we have a responsibility to take a look at that and then somehow almost push back and make it a better policy. Because what we should be doing, number one, we shouldn't be forecasting our rules of engagement, letting everybody know who we are actually going to screen, but we actually need to make sure that we are guarding against any potential person, regardless of their affiliation. If they are a threat to the United States of America, we need to have a screening criteria that's able to identify them.
Let me ask, are you okay with religion being included as a criteria?
That could be one of many factors when you start talking about where people come, but there's elements of a particular religion, not just a religion. You're talking about radical Islamic terrorism. That's a subset. He's put an overly broad statement out there. In my opinion, that's not helpful when you're actually trying to come up with a policy that works. We need to start focusing in on a policy that actually works, that doesn't forecast to our enemies what we're going to look at so that they can't adapt to that particular policy. That's what it is. Talking about credibility, let's talk about the Syrian refugees that the president and even this governor says, come on in here regardless of vetting. What I did as an El Paso County Commissioner, I brought forward an emergency resolution because I felt it was important for our community to make sure that before they come to our community and they sign up for health care benefits or anything like that, that we have a check in place to make sure that they aren't a threat. That's a responsible way to handle that. That's how we're going to continue to handle that in the future, and that's why I want to go to the United States Senate to protect each and every one of you.
Mr. Glenn, thank you. Mr. Graham, same question to you. A religious targeted sort of ban coming before Congress.
The primary responsibility of our federal government is our national security. It's to take care of the people in our country that our vital interests are protected and that we feel safe. That is absolutely something all of us should be able to depend upon. The notion that we need to throw into the conversation a religious mix in terms of our national security, I find to be illogical. What we need to do is we need to secure our borders, we need to enforce the laws that we've got in place today, and make certain that when people want to come into our country or they want to leave our country, we're using common sense. And common sense doesn't require that we analyze what their religions are. We need to know where they've been, what they've been doing, what their orientation to America is. Islamic jihadists have made abundantly clear to all of us that they seek to destroy America, to destroy our way of life. That's being exported from the Middle East. So the heightened security that's necessary around people who are coming into our country from the Middle East is obvious. We also have to pay attention to our southern border, however, and if we don't secure our borders, we're just going to compound our problems.
Would not support, to be clear.
Would not.
Okay, very much. Appreciate that very much. Mr. Kaiser, same question to you. What if something like that came to Congress?
Yeah, so in my mind, religion should not be something that's considered in a criteria of whether or not you're going to come into this country. But here is my criteria. We're going to keep terrorists out. And I'm an intelligence officer that's assigned to United States Southern Command, and I know at a very, very detailed level the threats that we face in this country, and they're real. And they're not just from radical Islamic terrorists. That is a big, big threat, but they come in a variety of races and religions, and we need to be very alert for all of those different threats. That's why we have to secure our border. So my plan is really threefold. We have to secure the border first. Then we have to actually modernize our immigration system. We sometimes, I think, as Republicans, don't get this quite right because we keep talking about people coming in and different things, but it's our system that's broken. It's our federal system that's broken. We got to fix it. We need to modernize it. We need to know who people are, where they have been, who they associate with, and if they pose a threat to this country, or if we're not sure, then they don't get to come in. And then the third thing I think we need to do is we need to make sure that we don't allow employers to employ illegal labor. And when we do those and enforce our laws, we'll have a safe country.
Mr. Kaiser, thank you.
Mr. Glenn, a question for you. Former Vice Presidential nominee Sarah Palin endorsed you today.
Yes.
Why does there seem to be such a disconnect between your popularity with the grassroots, as demonstrated at the State Assembly, and your seeming inability to raise money for this race? Because Senator Michael Bennet has a huge war chest. Why should Republican primary voters take a chance in nominating somebody who has not proven an ability to fundraise at that level?
Well, the premise of your question is wrong, because I don't know if you've actually looked at the fundraising numbers since we've actually won the State Assembly. I think you might recant that statement.
Well, clearly you're not among the fundraising leaders, and what I'm saying is if you don't have that demonstrated ability, why would Republicans take the chance to put you up against a very well-funded Democrat?
Well, there again, you assume that that is correct. And I'm telling you right now that the level of support that we're bringing the ability to be able to consolidate the base, but also being able to tap into national level figures to help us fundraise. And if you think money is going to win this election, then we would be here talking about Jeb Bush. And we're not.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn.
This one's for you, Mr. Blaha. You like talking about your product guarantee, and it
Here
is
we
catchy.
go.
It is catchy. I'll get the job done, or I'm coming home. I'm done with the Senate.
Absolutely.
But on one of your promises, cutting illegal immigration in half, the most recent number I could dig up from the feds, released on the size of the undocumented population, it's 4 years old. How can voters possibly hold you accountable for this promise when the statistics won't even be available when you're a year away from the next election?
I don't know what statistic you're using there, so maybe
I don't know which one you're using, so maybe we can get on the same page.
Well, we're using our statistics are actually government statistics. They're not our statistics. They're published in every major magazine. So I don't know what statistic you're using, but let me comment. I think it is important. If you're going to go, you're either going to give excuses when you come back, or you're going to give some guarantee. That's why we chose to go with the guarantee of taxes, borders, debt, and deficit. And I really believe that if you look at what's happened in the last several years, as we travel around this state and listen to people, people have had enough of people making shallow promises. People have had enough of people saying, I'm going to go to Washington and here's what I'm going to do, and then not doing anything. People want a guarantee. People want somebody that will make a guarantee, put a stake in the ground and say, these are the things I will do, or I'll come home. And I'm willing to do that.
So this is the 2015 report by CBP on the total size of the undocumented population in the country. Yep. Its numbers are for 2012. I couldn't find a federal statistic on the number who come in each year. Which number are we looking at? Are we looking at net illegal immigration? Are we looking at the change in the total population? Which number do I hold you accountable to?
We'd be looking at net, and I'll be glad to send you the backup statistics. But we'd be looking at net. So in other words, if we secure the borders, if we do what all of us say we're going to do, if we secure the borders, then we have to have an immediate reduction in the amount of illegal immigrants that wind up in this country. We have to fix vetting also. And until we can fix vetting and fix our border, we cannot fix the problem. So we must secure the border. If we don't secure the border and we continue to talk about this, we'll be sitting here in another there'll be another cast of characters here in another 5 years making the same shallow commitments and not making any agreements.
You're not talking, just to be clear, about the 11.3 million.
No, not at all.
You're talking
not
about
the
in-migration.
That's right, correct, in migration.
All right.
That answer your question?
I appreciate it, yeah.
Okay.
And we can talk more, I'm sure.
We sure will.
All right. So those of you at home are going to be able to weigh in on this next question while we talk about it among all of the candidates here. The State Department reports it issued about 500,000 immigrant visas last year, a green card. And it also says 11.4 million people who qualified for those visas put in for the lottery to get one. That's a pretty wide gap. Should we be letting more people into this country legally? And if so, how many? We'll start with you, Mr. Frazier.
Well, the short answer is yes. You know, I was out at Quail Ridge Dairy Farm. We were out there together. I don't know who else went out, but it was quite an experience to go out there and see the cows. It was interesting. But talking with the owners, they made it very clear to me that they could not find enough labor to help them run their farm, to provide a lot of the resources and quite frankly, milk, dairy, that we all rely on each and every day. And so we need to ensure that we have an adequate labor pool in our country, and I believe this is why we have to reform our work visa system. It's absolutely essential as a part of reforming immigration in this country that we have an adequate number. Now, Brandon, what that number is, I think that requires more study. I'm not exactly sure what the right number is, but I am sure that we need to ensure that we have enough people coming into the country legally with work visas so that we can provide the labor pool we need to meet our needs as a country.
I'm going to jump around a little bit. Mr. Kaiser, I'll send that same question to you. Should we be letting more people in legally? How many?
Well, actually, we should only be letting people in legally. That's the only way you should be able to come into this country. And again, when we secure our border, when we revolutionize, when we modernize our legal entry system, the free market's going to be able to dictate what kind of labor we need in this country. And frankly, I think what we do need is we need to make sure that it shouldn't take lawyers and tens of thousands of dollars for someone to try to come to this country. You know, I used to work with a woman who was married to a man who was from France, and he owned a tech company in Brazil. And they were married, they were going to have a baby, and she lived in the United States. And it took him about $20,000 or $30,000 in about 6 months in order to be able to get her husband to the United States to be able to be here legally, and he had a very successful company. Now, that means that we have a broken system. So we've got to be able to fix that. We've got to be able to fix and modernize our system so we can meet our work requirements in the United States, but really so we can make sure that we're keeping our country safe and secure and economically prosperous.
The federal government sets the numbers for how many can come in, though. So how are you saying the free market's going to decide it?
Well, the free market's going to say if people go, if constituents come to me, and I think that's an important part of being a representative of the people of Colorado, which is what I will do. If people are coming to me, if businesses and job creators are coming to me and they're saying, hey, this is a problem, then you know what? Yeah, we should have a government that responds to that can fix that. So we can respond in terms of supply and demand. We can respond to what the market needs. We'd like to have more people that come here with advanced degrees that are going to help us revolutionize things like that will help us modernize our economy, that will create disruptive innovation. Those types of things are the things that we need in this country. So an arbitrary number really doesn't make any sense, but we need to have a system that's mobile enough that can change for the different market demands as they do change over time.
Mr. Graham, more people coming in legally, yes or no? How many?
The starting conversation has to be about securing our borders. We've got 11 million people here illegally today. The notion of bringing more people in legally or illegally is counterproductive from my perspective. The first thing we have to do is secure our borders, and then we can move on to what are we going to do with the 11 million people who are here illegally, and how will we contend with our need to perhaps bring in more people as well to fill our workforce needs. Our economy does need migrant workers, an effective work visa program here in the United States. I actually have a different set of numbers. I was told, and I may be wrong about this, but I was told that we only issue 66,000 work visas to unskilled laborers here in the United States, and the market demand is measured in the millions. for construction, for agriculture, for hospitality, for healthcare. And so Americans aren't filling these jobs, and we need to fill them with migrant workers. And we can do that with an open market system. But it has to be legalized, there have to be background checks, they have to provide their own healthcare insurance. There's a myriad of things that have to be established before we can actually move into solving the problem. But the private market can solve this problem through technology. Technology can be a great friend for us in this conversation.
So that sounded like not at this time, is basically what you're saying.
Until we secure our borders, right.
Okay, very good. And so for the record at home, I was talking about the total number of visas, not just unskilled labor. But we'll move on down the line and talk to you, Mr. Blaha. More people coming into the country legally. Should we do it? How many?
Well, I think, Brandon, back to the point that Mr. Frazier was making. When we were out with the Kraft family, they pointed out very clearly that they are not able to get help no matter what they've tried. They documented for us exactly what they'd done to try to get American workers, what they'd done, the ads they'd run, the people that had come and how they'd work. And I would also say when I'm on the Western Slope and I talk to many of the farmers out there, I get the same thing. So what we need as Republicans is, yeah, everybody agrees we need to secure our borders. Everybody would stand, I think, tall in that. But we need some fresh ideas. We need some new ideas. We need some ways to solve problems instead of just complaining. I think if you look at what the Crafts are proposing, what the Crafts are suggesting is a very novel idea. Do the vetting off country, do the vetting in Mexico, in this case. Do the vetting, check the backgrounds, make sure they're here, get them the cards, get them the background, get them the experience, and then when you have the work, bring them into the country. A total novel idea. That's the problem. Government needs some new, novel, good business ideas.
Mr. Blaha, thank you. Mr. Glenn, have not forgotten about you. Should we allow more people into this country legally? If so, how many?
I think that question needs further analysis because you have to look at a stable immigration system. When I'm thinking about $19 trillion in debt, when I'm thinking about that we have a system in place where people are coming to this country, employers are bringing them here, and they're having their own employees train them to then give them their jobs. That's a system that needs to be thoroughly audited. We need to make sure that we're able to provide for the safety and security of the people that are here right now. Then if we're going to bring more people in here, that's fine. We need to do all those things, but we better have a clear understanding about our ability to be able to make sure that we are fiscally responsible as a country before we start figuring out whether we're going to add or subtract immigration. That's something that we need to do.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Graham, a question for you. When Colorado State fired you as the athletic director, your colleagues rated you very poorly on collaborating to achieve goals, adjusting your leadership style to meet the situation, and treating people with dignity and respect. And recently in this campaign, you've dismissed your CSU colleagues' concerns as, quote, fabricated and contrived. Why not take your colleagues' concerns about your leadership seriously?
You know, I take feedback I get from anybody seriously all of the time. But I will tell you that when I walked into that job as athletic director at Colorado State, I walked into an entrenched bureaucracy that was mired in mediocrity. And we had significant problems on our hand. We had behavior issues with our student athletes, drug issues with our student athletes. I implemented a drug testing program. I insisted that our student athletes be people of character, that they represent the university perfectly. I insisted that they succeed academically, and they did. And I insisted that they win. We taught them to win, and they won. We ended up being ranked first in the nation amongst all Division I universities in football, men's and women's basketball, and volleyball, ahead of the ranks of Notre Dame, Stanford, Alabama, Florida. So we got a lot done. And believe me, and I wouldn't change a thing that I did. I wouldn't change a single thing that I did, because that is what was required to deliver the results that were necessary. And believe me, when we go back to Washington, D.C., if you've ever seen an entrenched bureaucracy, if there's a place that needs a change in culture, it is Washington, D.C. And so I'll take the exact same commitment to get things done back to Washington to deliver those kinds of results. I have absolutely no apologies for the way I did things and for what we got done. Do
you have any apologies for the way that you've dismissed your colleagues' criticisms of your leadership style?
I have not dismissed my colleagues' criticisms.
You called them fabricated and contrived.
The strategy to take the personnel review information that was released illegally, by the way, and release that to the press was a fabricated and contrived strategy by the university.
As a public employee, is your review not public?
It's not. No. Personnel files, even in public, particularly in public jobs, are not public. It's not public information.
Portions of personnel files actually are available through open records law. I've received them many times as a journalist.
We'll have to talk about that, Kyle. I think your information may be a little bit compromised. What they can release is information related to a performance grade. Personnel information from a file cannot be released. The university was under tremendous pressure and heat when I was terminated. Fans were upset, coaches were upset, student athletes were upset, if not livid. And the heat that the university was suffering through that process was acute. And to deflect the attention away from the university and towards me, they sought to defame and to compromise my reputation by releasing that information.
Do you think the university
unfairly.
told people to give you bad reviews, or do you think that the people who worked for you and alongside you really thought that you were a poor leader?
You know, that personnel review, that was what's called a 360-degree review, where people anonymously provide feedback with a piece of paper. It's facilitated by a consultant typically. The consultant typically works with the person who's being reviewed to understand what was going on inside the department, inside the unit. And then after the feedback is received, that person then sits down and says, here's the feedback that I received. No one ever met with me. No one ever met with me about the process or gave me any information about it. I think it was a compromised process personally.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Appreciate it. Mr. Kaiser, a question for you.
Just go back on that real quick here.
Actually,
in the
no.
military,
Your recent television ad claims that President Obama and Senator Bennett want to arm Iran with nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
With all of the fair and reasoned criticism of the Iran nuke deal that's out there, why did you choose to make a false claim?
Yeah, so I'll go back to the comment about military personnel reviews in a second. But thanks for asking that question, because that is a very, very important thing that we need to understand, that Coloradans need to understand. You know, when Barack Obama and Michael Bennet supported that deal with Iran, I immediately knew that that was a terrible, terrible deal. And I know that a nuclear Iran is not an option, period. It cannot be an option. And when they voted for the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, that provided a clear path. It paved the way. It guaranteed that Iran will have a nuclear weapon probably by the time my kids are in middle school. And it did a lot more than that. It actually started a nuclear arms race in the Middle East because the Saudis will not let the Iranians get a nuclear weapon before them. And beyond that, it gave the world's largest state sponsor of terror $150 billion to do things like fund terror operations around the globe and also purchase conventional weapons that they can modernize their military. What I said was absolutely factual, and I stand by that. I look forward to debating Michael Bennet on this.
Mr. Kaiser, actually, in that litany of concerns there, you never repeated the false claim that you make in your ad. All of your criticism there are things that people have differences of opinion on. But the claim that's in your ad, which is verifiably false, there's no evidence to support, is that they wanted to arm Iran with a nuclear weapon. I understand if you're saying that the deal was a bad deal or counterproductive, but I guess perhaps this is a leadership question, and it's not a question about the deal. With all of the fair criticism out there, why did you choose to make a false criticism?
You know, those of us who have served, like I have in Iraq and Afghanistan and other places, I've fought against the Iranians. I've looked them in the eyes. You know, frankly, they've killed my friends. And I know that there is such a thing as good and evil in this world. There is black and white, and you can't have it both ways. Either you want Iran to have a nuclear weapon or you don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. And in my mind, there is no question this world and the United States is at danger if Iran has the ability to obtain a nuclear weapon. They didn't have that ability before the deal. They were contained, they were constrained, they were cut off from the world. And when we released those sanctions, it gave them a clear path to be able to get a nuclear weapon. There is such a thing as good and evil in this world. I know it because I've seen it. And I'm going to make sure that I hold Michael Bennet accountable for his terrible decision to support the Iran deal.
Just to wrap this up, I will note that in our discussion here, you have yet to repeat your false claim. So I don't know if that means that you decided to no longer make it.
Kyle, you keep repeating the talking points of the Democrats and the liberal media.
No, sir, it's a fact.
And that's exactly what the Democrats and the liberal media want people to believe, is that they want to cover for Michael Bennet. And they want to say, hey, you know, it's okay. Don't worry about it. You know, go ahead and make that vote. It's politics. You know, it won't be any big deal. It's a huge deal, okay? It's a huge deal. I've fought these guys. I've looked them in the eyes, and they've killed my friends. I know that a nuclear Iran is not an option. And when Michael Bennet voted for the Iran deal, he voted to give them a nuclear weapon. He made that vote knowing what the result would be. I stand by that, and I will never deviate from that.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser.
Mr. Kaiser, we got a taste of how you handle bad news when accusations of forgery came out in your signature petition. First, you ducked the question, then blamed the people who found the forgeries, then you blamed the media, then you blamed the person who gathered the signatures. Does any blame belong with you, and should you be allowed more broadly to benefit from forgery?
Well, clearly, again, we're getting a lot of talking points from the Democrats tonight. It seems like it's almost a press release that we're getting, Brandon. But frankly, I think that we put this behind us. Of course, this has been through the Secretary of State. It's been through courts multiple times, frankly. The Democrats have tried to sue to keep me off the ballot. Of course, that was dismissed as well. The bigger thing is this. We have to be focused on this race. The gentlemen that are up here right now, we are focused on defeating Michael Bennet. And if we allow the Democrats to guide this conversation so that we're talking about process, so we're talking about anything but Michael Bennett's failed record, then we're doing nothing but carrying the water for the Democrats, because they know that's the path to Michael Bennett's reelection and his path to victory. I think what it says is that certainly we had some things that happened in our campaign that should not have happened, and I've said that is wrong. But we have to be able to move on from that. I am moving on from that. And the reason that the Democrats are being so relentless in targeting me is because they know that I'm the only one that proposes any kind of threat to Michael Bennet. I'll beat him in November.
This one is for you, Mr. Frazier. Yeah. There you are. You barely made
it's his turn.
Yeah. We talked about all the wrangling here. You barely made it onto the ballot. You had to appeal all the way to the state Supreme Court in order to be here today. What a lot of GOP voters might remember about you in big races is that you lost them handily. So why shouldn't they have doubts, given what it took for you to still be on this stage today?
Well, that's not quite true. I didn't lose them handily. I've won more than I've lost. Let's start there. But I'll tell you this much: when you've won, that's great. Everybody loves you. When you lose, you learn a hell of a lot more about yourself and who you are as a person. And I've grown a lot since then. It's been almost 6 years that I've been in the private sector working, running a business. And when you couple my private sector business experience with my military record, with the fact that I co-founded one of the largest public charter schools in Colorado, and yes, I represented the city of Aurora for 8 years, where I helped to redevelop Fitzsimmons, and now we have 25,000 people working on Fitzsimmons. I think you see combined an experience set and a vision that says we can help move America in a better direction. And Michael Bennet, in fact, does not want to face me in a general election. John, I would take issue with what you said. You're not the only guy that proposes a threat to Michael Bennet. I am the threat to Michael Bennet. This is a guy who was born on third base but thinks he hit a triple. And when you compare and contrast my record, my experience, my vision with his, you'll see we can move Colorado and our country forward. And I'm looking forward to that contest in November.
Thank you.
So during our discussion, folks at home have been weighing in on 9news.com/vote-now on a number of the topics that you guys have been addressing. And this is the opportunity now for folks at home to choose our next topic of conversation: tax reform, immigration, or healthcare. 9news.com/vote-now is where you can select the next topic of conversation. And all I would ask, gentlemen, is please just answer the viewer's chosen question. They're putting effort in with their thumbs right now to pick between tax reform, immigration, and healthcare. So we will go to that question next year. We are just a little bit past the halfway mark, and wondering where folks are now on the choice. They are saying that they want to hear about both tax reform and healthcare. So Brandon, cross off one of your upcoming questions. We're going to ask about tax reform and healthcare.
All right.
We'll do it in that order. One piece of tax reform that you think there would be bipartisan support for and could actually get done, not just with the largest of Republican majorities. Mr. Blaha.
Lowering the rates for everybody. I think everybody would agree that the IRS is out of control, that it's an organization that basically has been politicized. I think maybe most importantly, though, if you're talking about getting the economy moving, we need to look at our corporate tax rate. Corporate tax rate in America, folks, is about 35% to 36%. It's unsustainable in the global marketplace. So what we're doing is we're driving the economy to other parts of the world by not having a tax rate that is acceptable. A tax rate down in the teens, 18, 19, 20. Most of the economists I'm reading, that's what they agree.
You think there'd be bipartisan support?
I think there is bipartisan support for it. I think if you realize that the idea of getting a better job for my kid and your kid and everybody out there is really something. It's not a left issue. It's not a right issue. It's not a conservative or liberal issue. It's a smart issue for America. So we need to get America back to work. Look at the jobs growth, guys. 38,000 jobs were created. That's not even tepid. That's something we should be ashamed of. So we need to get our economy moving. We need to move that tax rate down to something that's acceptable, and I think people would agree. Thank you.
So rarely does a public event go by, Mr. Graham, without one of your competitors up here needling you for the fact that you were a longtime registered Democrat, even as you supported Republicans. But I feel like, if anything, this may give you the upper hand to answer this particular question, which is what piece of tax reform that you favor could you sell Democrats in D.C. on?
I think it is reform of the corporate tax rate. Conversation about being a Republican, I'm more than happy to have that conversation as well, Kyle. In terms of, we do live in a toxic business environment in the United States of America today, and we are losing massive numbers of jobs overseas. The fact that our corporate tax rate is effectively 39.1% here in the state of Colorado, and on average across the country about 40%. It's double the average tax rate that exists in Europe, and it's the second highest in the world. So it's no mystery that businesses want to leave the United States because we have such a hostile business environment. Just this week in USA Today, there was an article about the fact that they were endorsing the idea of a reduction of the corporate tax rate. President Obama even endorsed the idea that corporate taxes should be reduced from 35% at the federal level down to 28%. I don't think 28% is enough. I think 20% is a very good number. USA Today thought that was a good number as well.
If you could get 28, would you take 28?
If I couldn't get 20 and 28 was as best we could get, it's a start. I mean, I think it's a rational conversation. I think we need to go for something that will actually make us competitive. 28% is still in excess of the average that exists in Europe, so it's not far enough. And so it would be disappointing if that's as far as we could go.
Thank you, Mr. Graham.
I'll go ahead and jump in on health care here. So Republicans have been quick to accuse Democrats of causing people to lose their coverage whenever we see a health plan go away. How are you going to replace Obamacare without making millions of people lose their coverage as well, Mr. Kaiser?
Oh, gosh, this has been such a disaster, this Obamacare that we've had in Colorado. Of course, we know that our co-op collapsed. We know that hundreds of thousands of people have had to change plans, have lost their doctors, have moved to different insurance plans. And when I go around the state and when I talk to people, they tell me things like, yeah, sure, I have the government mandated health care that I'm required to have now, but I can't afford my premiums. They're soaring. Or maybe, yeah, I have the health insurance that I'm required to have, but I can no longer see the doctor that I want to see. And I think it was today, there was a new report that came out that said Coloradans, because of Michael Bennett's vote and because of his support of Obamacare, can expect to be seeing up to a 40% increase in the coming year for their premiums. That's unconscionable. So Michael Bennett's statements about if you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. That this would drive down the cost of healthcare. We're now looking at the most expensive healthcare in the world in some places here in Colorado.
But how do you
Michael
change it
Bennett
without
has
being
no
disruptive,
answers for
is
it.
my question.
Well, that is the big question, and I have been very, very clear that I think the free market is the way that we can go. We need to. When I say repeal Obamacare, I also say we need to replace it, but we have to do it at the state level. We can do that with free market solutions. Disruptive innovation is changing the way every aspect of our economy is moving. It's happening so quickly. Government can never keep up with that. So I think we have to remove it to the state level. And I think something that is something really important that we need to talk about is the fact that I grew up on the Western Slope. And when Michael Bennett was over on the Western Slope here, maybe a week and a half or so ago, he was sitting in front of the editorial board at the newspaper in Grand Junction, and they asked him about the devastating effects that Obamacare has been having on Colorado families. And Michael Bennett said, yeah, sure, I understand. It's been devastating. I understand the problem. But guess what else he said? I don't have any answers. That is what our United States Senator said. He doesn't have any answers for how terrible this landmark legislation has been hurting Coloradans.
Thank you very much.
I do.
Mr. Frazier, how do you replace Obamacare without being disruptive?
It's really unfortunate. I was sitting in the living room of Mrs. Seiss, a Hispanic mom of 3, by the way, an independent, small business owner. And she says to me, Ryan, we got to do something about Obamacare. She says, I'm paying over $1,000 a month for my premium, and my out-of-pocket is $6,000. Too many Coloradans across this state are facing that very same reality. It's not affordable. And so what do we do about it? We have to offer up conservative solutions to how we replace Obamacare with more consumer-driven choices. Now, what does that look like? Well, we know today 155 million Americans get their health insurance through their employer. We ought to leave that alone. For those who don't, we should provide tax credit so they can purchase health insurance. Coupled with health savings accounts, portability, allowing people to purchase health insurance across state lines, and some tort reform, And we have a set of consumer choice-driven solutions that will actually bring down the cost of health care for Colorado and for all Americans, and quite frankly, expand access. These are solutions that we as Republicans are offering. These are the types of solutions as your United States Senator I will fight for, because I understand what Obamacare is doing to everyday Americans. I understand what it's doing to our small business owners, and we have to fix it. It's not acceptable to sit by and let this continue to do what it's been doing to our economy and to our people. And I believe it's time for a conservative Republican to step forward with solutions. I intend to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Mr. Glenn, a question for you.
I was going to pull the
how do we
Carson card here just for a second.
This is a healthcare question.
Okay.
It's also a question of veterans issues.
Good.
How do we fix the VA system? President Obama was in the Springs recently. He told the Gazette that privatization is off the table. Do you agree with the president on that? The privatization of the VA should be off the table?
Well, I'm glad he's going to be leaving office. And how you fix it is actually send somebody to Washington that carries the card. I tell you one thing, when you think about the sacrifice that our men and women are willing to do each and every day, and the fact that they have a healthcare system that has let them down, that's something that's unconscionable. Men and women that serve this country, you fix it by allowing them choice. You fix it by allowing them to go wherever they need to go as far as being able to receive care immediately.
Full choice, all services.
Full choice, absolutely.
I've got a little different viewpoint on that. And I've written pretty widely about it, had a couple op-eds. So here's how I believe you fix the VA, talking to the experts. You do the same thing you do in industry. You do a very disruptive and a deep dive on specifically what's happened there. You evaluate very clearly what the VA is doing well and doing not well. If you find people that need to be prosecuted, you prosecute them, and you do something that's very simple. You let the free market come in. You give veterans a card, and they're allowed to use that card at the VA for services or take it to the public marketplace.
It's like a debit card system.
And what would happen, over about a year to 18 months, what would happen is the VA would either have to respond to the competitive marketplace and stand up, or it would topple of its own weight. Either way, the veteran wins.
Thank you, Mr. Blau. We have time for one quick short answer before we begin our closing statements.
And I'm going to go from left to right down the line here. Do you support cutting off federal funds to sanctuary cities?
Yes.
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 I do.
Yes.
And then the follow-up to that, do you consider Denver to be a sanctuary city with its policies?
I think it is.
I believe it is.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
You don't have a third one?
I think we do have a third one.
Everybody
you guys were quick, thanks.
You're expecting us to elaborate.
No, I'll go down the line. Who here would like to reverse the Supreme Court decision that legalized same-sex marriage nationwide? Mr. Blau?
I think we need to talk about it. I mean, I think it's a 10th Amendment issue. I think the federal government continues to stick its nose in on all kinds of issues
So maybe?
it shouldn't.
All right,
Maybe.
Mr. Frazier.
This is the decision that ought to be left to the
Tenth.
state. I stand by that. I've always long supported traditional
So the
marriage.
Supreme Court
but I
ruling
believe this is a decision that should be left to the states, not to the Supreme Court.
10th Amendment?
Mr. Glenn.
Yes.
This is a right. The fundamental right to for freedoms of liberties in America is a federal right, and I would not support overturning that ruling.
Mr. Kaiser.
Mr. Kaiser?
Well, I think the decision was wrongly decided. I think that should have been decided on 10th Amendment grounds. It should have been left to the states. And I think in Colorado, we would have had a vote of the people, and I think that we would allow marriage in Colorado.
Now that it's done?
But it's already been done. I think it was wrongly decided.
And leave it be?
There's a
yes or
question
no.
there. Leave it be or overturn it?
Yeah, I already said it was wrongly decided, but if it was changed, it should have been at the state level. Yeah.
Time now for closing statements. Each candidate will have 45 seconds in turn. The order was randomly selected ahead of time. Mr. Kaiser.
Well, tonight I have with me someone who's very special to me. It's my mother-in-law, Deanna. And today we had some very good news that Deanna got her 2-year scans that were cleared. She was diagnosed with some very severe lung cancer. And we're very happy today that she's able to see our grandkids and that she's with us fighting today because she got great treatment. She got it right away. She got it at the Anschutz Medical Campus at the Cancer Center. But our veterans right now aren't getting that same treatment. I met some veterans in Colorado Springs this last weekend, and the gentleman told me, my doctor told me that he thinks that I have throat cancer, but I have more than a month to wait before I can actually go to a specialist to find out if I have cancer. That's wrong. We need to change the way we're treating our veterans. We need to
Thank you, Mr.
have
Kaiser.
the VA be an insurance company, not a healthcare provider.
Mr. Frazier.
Thank you. Now, this is our time. Let me start off by asking every Republican watching, I want to ask you for your vote, for your support. I'm ready to work for you in Washington to fight for Colorado. We must reignite the American spirit. That is fundamentally important to who we are, of hard work, entrepreneurship, and opportunity for each and every one of us, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from. We can fight for a government that, yes, builds the roads and water systems, but that protects our rights, upholds the Constitution, and defends our country. That embraces free enterprise for job creation, that gives parents choice in their child's education. And yes, deals with illegal immigration and secures our borders. And a government that is willing to give people that need it a hand up, not a handout. And for most Americans, a government that simply keeps its hands off our lives, respecting our liberty and individual responsibility. Thank you.
Mr. Glenn.
I want to thank everyone. It's extremely important. After 7.5 years of hope and change, all we have is change in our pocket. I've traveled across this great state. I started campaigning last January. I've met so many wonderful people, and we've had tough discussions. And I get it. I'm asking for your trust because it's extremely important to understand that I get the fact that you are tired of politicians saying one thing and going to Washington, D.C. and completely selling out. You've been let down too many times. It's time for Colorado to lead. That's my motto. I need your support. Go to electdarrellglenn.com. Together, we can bring back Colorado. Together, we can win this nation and win.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn. Mr. Graham.
You know, great leaders have a vision. They know where we're going. They know what we need to be. And I think if we went around this room right now, we would struggle to define what our vision is for America. And that is a massive failure of our leadership. I think probably because I'm a business person and perhaps that I'm not a career politician, I actually do have a vision for America. We care deeply about our security and our safety. We are financially disciplined. We balance our budget. We rarely borrow money. We've got a vibrant economy that produces more and better paying jobs regularly, and we've got a thriving middle class. That is the America that I see moving forward. And if we're going to have that America, we are going to have a change in leadership. I'm Jack Graham. I'm running for the United States Senate, and I would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Mr. Blau.
Thank you, Channel 9. Thank you, two guys. Great job. Thanks a lot. You know, there's a different wind blowing now in America. We all feel it. We all know what's happening. America's looking for something fundamentally different. It's looking for leaders that actually will go and do what they say they're going to do, that will stand up, that will speak out, that will boldly fight for their kids, their grandkids, and maybe do the most important thing after they've gone and had the great honor to serve: go home. So I'd leave with one final thought tonight. Einstein said it best: if we send the same people to do the same things with the same abilities, we will get the same thing. He called that insanity. I would say we have a great opportunity to do something fundamental. I'm Robert Blaha. Thank you very much for your opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Blau.
All right, thanks to our candidates. And if somebody won you over on stage tonight, we have a way you can tell the whole world who it was and why. We have partnered with changepolitics.org this election cycle. It's a nonpartisan social network for elections. You can pull up your entire ballot by your address, pick candidates to endorse, and see who your neighbors like as well. Take it for a spin. Type in changepolitics.org/9news in any device.
9 News Facebook page right now. Our political experts are analyzing what we saw here tonight. Good night.